I woke up that Tuesday morning to the smell of coffee and the low hum of Maria's voice on the phone in the kitchen. The sun was already hot through the blinds, that thick Houston heat that starts early and doesn't quit. I could hear my boy Marcus in the other room, probably glued to his tablet like always, 7 years old and already smarter with technology than I'd ever be. I rolled out of bed, my back still aching from yesterday's 12-hour shift at the refinery, and stumbled toward the bathroom. The news was on in the living room. Maria always had it on, said it helped her wake up. Some blonde anchor was talking about traffic on I-10, same as every morning, nothing new. I splashed water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. 42 years old, lines starting to show, hands scarred and calloused from 20 years working pipes and valves at the Baytown complex. My daddy had worked there before me, died of lung cancer when I was Marcus's age. The refinery was in my blood, for better or worse. "Darius, you want eggs?" Maria called out. "Yeah, baby, scrambled," I called back, pulling on my work jeans and a faded Astros t-shirt. I walked into the kitchen and kissed her on the cheek. She smelled like vanilla and sleep. Marcus looked up from his screen just long enough to wave at me before diving back into whatever game had him hypnotized. The TV was showing something different now, not the usual morning fluff. The anchor's face had changed, more serious, and there was a breaking news banner across the bottom. CDC officials are investigating what they're calling containment irregularities at a University of Texas research facility in Austin. The facility was reportedly handling samples related to a classified biodefense project. Authorities stress there is no immediate danger to the public, but residents in the surrounding area are advised to remain indoors as a precaution. Maria set a plate of eggs in front of me. "That sounds scary. Austin's 2 hours away, baby. We're fine." I took a bite, but something in my gut twisted. 20 years at the refinery teaches you to trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. My phone buzzed. Text from my foreman, Big Mike. "Early shift. Get here by 6. Something's up with the contractors." I checked my watch. 5:30. I shoveled the rest of my eggs down and grabbed my boots. "Gotta go early," I told Maria. She frowned but nodded. She was used to it. The refinery didn't run on a schedule that cared about family breakfast. "Be safe," she said, kissing me. "Love you." "Love you too. You too, Marcus." "Love you, Dad," my boy mumbled without looking up. I walked out into the humid morning air, climbed into my truck and headed east toward Baytown. The radio was doing the usual morning show garbage, some DJ laughing too loud about nothing. I switched it to news. More about Austin. The anchor was saying something about a manifesto posted online, claiming responsibility for liberating the samples. Terrorists. My hands tightened on the wheel. The refinery loomed ahead, a massive sprawl of silver towers and pipes, flames burning orange at the top of stacks, the whole thing like a mechanical city rising out of the flat Texas coast. I'd spent half my life climbing those catwalks, turning those valves, keeping the whole operation running. It was dangerous work. You could die 100 ways out there, burns, explosions, falls, toxic gas. But it paid the bills, and in Houston, the refinery was what you did if you didn't have a college degree. I pulled through the security gate, showed my badge, parked in my usual spot. The lot was more crowded than normal for this time of morning. Something was definitely up. I grabbed my hard hat and gloves and headed toward the main briefing area. Big Mike was there, 6'5" and built like a linebacker, his face covered in sweat despite the early hour. Around him were maybe 30 other guys, pipe fitters, operators, contractors. Everyone looked tense. "All right, listen up," Mike said, his voice cutting through the murmur. "We got a situation. 2 of the contractors called in sick this morning. Real sick. Puking blood, fever, the whole 9. Company sent 'em home yesterday afternoon, but now HR's saying we all got to get temperature checks before we start work. New protocol, effective immediately." Groans rippled through the crowd. Nobody liked delays. "What's this got to do with that Austin thing?" someone called out. Mike's jaw tightened. "Nothing official, but yeah, there's rumours. Just get your temps checked, do your jobs, and keep your heads down. We got quotas to hit." We lined up like school kids, one by one getting thermometers shoved in our ears by a nervous-looking woman from the medical office. When it was my turn, she barely looked at me. 98.4. You're clear. I headed to my section, Unit 12, where we were doing maintenance on a catalytic cracker. My partner for the day was supposed to be Rodriguez, a younger guy, maybe 30, always joking around. But when I got to the staging area, Rodriguez wasn't there. Instead, there was a contractor I'd seen around but didn't know well. Name tag said WEBB. "Where's Rodriguez?" I asked. Webb shrugged. "Called in sick. I'm filling in." "You know this unit?" "Enough." I didn't like it, but we had work to do. We geared up, harnesses, respirators, the works, and started climbing. The catwalk was 100 feet up, overlooking a maze of pipes and valves. Below us, the ground crew was moving equipment, the whole refinery humming with activity. The heat was already brutal, shimmering off the metal. We were halfway through replacing a flange gasket when I heard it. A cough, wet, rattling, wrong. I looked over at Webb. He was bent over, hand on his chest, coughing hard enough that his whole body shook. "You all right?" I asked. He didn't answer, just kept coughing. Then he straightened up, and I saw his face. It was pale, almost grey, and his eyes. Jesus, his eyes looked wrong, bloodshot, unfocused. "Webb?" He coughed again, and this time blood came out. Not a little, a lot. It splattered across the metal grating at our feet, thick and dark. "Shit, man, you need to get to medical." He lunged at me. I barely had time to react. He came at me with his hands out, fingers clawed, moving fast, too fast for someone who'd just been coughing up blood. I stumbled backward, my boots slipping on the wet grating. He grabbed my shirt and pulled me toward him, his mouth open, teeth snapping. I could see more blood in his mouth, dripping down his chin, and the smell. God, the smell was like rotting meat. I shoved him hard, using my weight to break his grip. He staggered back, but didn't fall. Didn't even seem to feel it. He came at me again, and this time I grabbed the Stilson wrench from my belt and swung it as hard as I could. The steel connected with his temple with a wet crunch, and he dropped like a sack of bricks, collapsing onto the catwalk. I stood there, breathing hard, my heart slamming against my ribs. Webb was on the ground, twitching. Blood pooled around his head. "Mike!" I shouted into my radio. "Mike, we got a situation on Unit 12. Webb just attacked me. He's hurt bad." Static. Then Mike's voice, strained. "Darius, we got bigger problems. Get down here. Now." I looked down at Webb. His eyes were still open, staring at nothing. But his hand was moving, fingers twitching like he was trying to get up. "Ain't right," I muttered. "This ain't right." I clipped my harness to the safety line and started descending the ladder as fast as I could. Halfway down, I heard screaming. Not just one person, multiple people. I looked across the refinery and saw chaos, workers running. Someone on another unit was fighting, 2 guys grappling on a catwalk. Smoke was rising from somewhere near the east side. I hit the ground and ran toward the main control building. The door was locked. I pounded on it. "Open up! It's Darius." The door cracked open and Mike's face appeared. "Get in! Hurry!" I slipped inside and he slammed the door behind me. Inside were maybe a dozen guys, all looking scared. The control room screens showed feeds from all over the refinery, and what I saw made my blood turn cold. Workers attacking each other. Bodies on the ground. Fires starting in multiple locations. "What the hell is happening?" I asked. Mike pointed to a TV in the corner. The news was on, the same blonde anchor, but she wasn't smiling anymore. Behind her was footage of Austin, buildings burning, people running in the streets, and bodies, so many bodies. "The virus from Austin," Mike said. "It's spreading." Fast. They're saying it's airborne or transmitted through fluids. They don't know yet. People are getting sick, and then… He gestured at the screens. They're going crazy, attacking people. There's reports coming in from all over Houston now. It's not just the refinery. I thought of Maria, Marcus, home alone. I got to get out of here. I got to get to my family. Roads are jammed, one of the other guys said. I-10's a parking lot. Everyone's trying to leave the city. I pulled out my phone and called Maria. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. Damn it! I slammed my fist against the wall. We need to stay here, Mike said. Lock the doors. Wait for the authorities. An explosion rocked the building. The lights flickered. On the screens, I saw one of the distillation towers erupting in flames. Someone, or something, had ruptured a line. This place is going to blow, I said. We can't stay here. Mike looked at the screens, then at me. He knew I was right. The refinery was a powder keg on a good day. With fires spreading and nobody in control, it was only a matter of time before the whole complex went up. All right, he said. We make a run for the parking lot. Stay together. Don't stop for anything. We armed ourselves with whatever we could find. Wrenches, pipes, fire axes. I grabbed a heavy crowbar and tested its weight. It would do. Mike unlocked the door and we moved out in a tight group. The air was thick with smoke. Alarms were blaring from every direction. I could see bodies on the ground, some of them moving, twitching. We gave them a wide berth. A woman stumbled out from between two tanks ahead of us. She was wearing a lab coat, one of the engineers, I think. Her face was covered in blood, and she was making a sound, a low moan that made my skin crawl. Her eyes were white, rolled back in her head. Keep moving, Mike said. She turned toward us and started running, not walking, running, fast. Go! 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 Mike shouted. We ran. Behind us, I heard more of that moaning. I glanced back and saw them. At least a dozen workers, all moving wrong, jerky and fast, all coming toward us. Some were crawling, missing limbs, dragging themselves forward. Others were running full speed, their mouths open, blood and foam dripping from their lips. We rounded a corner and nearly collided with another group of survivors, 3 guys from the maintenance crew. They were beating something on the ground with pipes. When they looked up, I saw the terror in their eyes. They won't die, one of them screamed. We keep hitting them and they won't die. The head, someone shouted. You gotta destroy the brain. I didn't wait to see if it was true. We kept running. The parking lot was in sight now, just beyond the security fence. But between us and the gate was a scene from hell. Cars were crashed into each other, some on fire, bodies everywhere, and the infected, I couldn't think of them as people anymore, were swarming. One of them grabbed a guy next to me, pulled him down. I heard his screams as they tore into him. I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. I swung my crowbar at anything that got close, felt it connect with flesh and bone, kept moving. I reached my truck, fumbled for my keys. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the door. Behind me, Mike was shouting, trying to rally the others, but the infected were everywhere now. I saw him go down under a pile of them, his screams cut short. I got the door open, threw myself inside, locked it. 2 infected slammed against the window, their hands leaving bloody smears on the glass. I started the engine and floored it, running over one of them, feeling the sickening bump as the tires rolled over the body. I didn't look back. The gate was open. I drove through it and onto the main road. Traffic was at a standstill, cars abandoned everywhere, people running between them. I drove on the shoulder, then on the grass median, honking my horn, weaving around obstacles. A man jumped in front of my truck, waving his arms, begging for help. I swerved around him. I couldn't help anyone. I had to get home. It took me 2 hours to drive what should have been a 20-minute trip. The closer I got to the city, the worse it got. Fires burning everywhere. The sound of gunfire in the distance, helicopters overhead, and the infected, appearing in groups, chasing anyone they saw. I finally turned onto my street. Our house was at the end of a cul-de-sac, a little two-story with a fenced yard. I saw Maria's car in the driveway. Relief flooded through me. I pulled in behind it, grabbed the crowbar, and ran to the front door. "Maria! Marcus!" I pounded on the door. "It's me!" "Open up!" The door opened a crack and Maria's face appeared. She looked terrified. "Darius, oh my God!" She pulled me inside and locked the door behind me. Marcus was hiding behind the couch, his eyes wide. I scooped him up and held him tight. "You okay? You both okay?" "We're okay," Maria said, but her voice was shaking. "Darius, what's happening? The news is saying it's a virus, that people are attacking each other. It's true, I saw it. We have to leave. Now." "Leave? Go where?" "Anywhere but here. The whole city's falling apart." She looked at me, then at Marcus, then back at me. "Okay, let me grab some things." While she packed a bag, I went to the window and looked out. The street was quiet for now, but I could hear sirens in the distance, and that sound, that terrible moaning sound, was getting closer. Maria came back with a duffel bag and Marcus's backpack. "I got clothes, water, food, what else?" "That's good, let's go." We headed for the truck. I was about to open the door when I saw them. 3 infected coming down the street. They saw us and started running. "Get in the truck! Now!" Maria threw Marcus into the back seat and jumped in after him. I ran around to the driver's side, but one of the infected was faster than I thought. It grabbed my arm just as I reached for the door handle. I spun around and drove the crowbar into its face, felt the skull crack under the impact. It dropped, but the other 2 were right behind it. I got the door open and climbed in. One of them grabbed the door before I could close it, its fingers clawing at me. I kicked it in the chest, slammed the door, locked it. They pounded on the windows, their faces pressed against the glass, teeth gnashing. I started the truck and backed out fast, running over one of them. The other chased us for a few feet before giving up and turning toward a neighbor's house. "Where are we going?" Maria asked. "I-10. We'll head west, get out of the city. The news said the highways are blocked. We'll find a way." I drove through the neighborhood, taking back roads to avoid the main streets. Everywhere I looked, I saw the same thing. Houses on fire, bodies in yards, cars crashed into trees. The infection was spreading faster than I'd imagined possible. We reached the on-ramp for I-10 and I saw what Maria had meant. The highway was a parking lot. Cars stretched as far as I could see, bumper to bumper, not moving. Some were abandoned, doors hanging open. Others had people inside, honking their horns uselessly. And moving between the cars, hunting, were the infected. "We're not getting through that," Maria said. She was right. I pulled off the ramp and tried to think. West was blocked. East would take us back toward the refinery. North might work, but the roads were smaller, easier to get trapped. South led to the coast, which was a dead end. "We need supplies," I said. "Food, water, gas, and weapons. Better weapons than this." I held up the crowbar. "Where?" I thought about it. "There's a sporting goods store on Fairmont. Big place. If we can get there, we can stock up." "What if it's already been raided?" "Then we find somewhere else. But we gotta try." I turned the truck around and headed toward Fairmont. The streets were chaos. We passed a convenience store being looted, people running in and out with armfuls of supplies. 2 men were fighting over a case of water while infected closed in on them from behind. I didn't stop. We passed a police roadblock, but the cops were gone, their cars abandoned, lights still flashing. Bodies littered the street, both infected and not. Some of them were in pieces. Marcus started crying. Maria held him close, whispering that it was okay, that we were okay, but I could hear the fear in her voice. The sporting goods store appeared ahead. The parking lot was half full, but I didn't see anyone moving. I pulled around to the back entrance, figuring it would be safer than the front. "Stay in the truck," I told Maria. "Lock the doors. If anything happens, you drive away. Don't wait for me." "Darius." "I mean it. You protect Marcus. That's all that matters." I got out with the crowbar and approached the back door. It was unlocked, slightly ajar. Not a good sign. I pushed it open slowly and stepped inside. The store was dark, emergency lights providing just enough glow to see. Shelves were knocked over, merchandise scattered everywhere. Someone had been here, maybe multiple people. But as I moved deeper into the store, I didn't see anyone. I made my way to the camping section, grabbed a heavy backpack and started filling it. Water purification tablets, energy bars, a first aid kit, a hunting knife. Then I moved to the firearms section. The display cases were smashed, most of the guns already taken. But I found a Remington 870 shotgun lying on the floor and a box of shells that had rolled under a counter. I loaded the gun and slung it over my shoulder. It felt good to have something more substantial than a crowbar. I grabbed ammunition for other calibers too, stuffed everything I could into the backpack. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, shuffling, coming from the front of the store. I moved behind a shelf and waited. The footsteps got closer. Then I saw it. One of the infected, a man in torn clothes, half his face missing, one eye dangling from its socket. He was sniffing the air, head tilted, like he was searching for something. I raised the shotgun, aimed at his head. My finger rested on the trigger. But I hesitated. The noise would attract more of them. I'd seen enough to know they responded to sound. The infected moved past my hiding spot without noticing me. I waited until he was on the other side of the store, then quietly made my way back toward the rear exit. I almost made it, but I kicked something, a can rolling across the floor, and the sound echoed through the store. The infected spun around and saw me. It opened its mouth and let out a shriek that made my blood run cold. Then it charged. I pulled the trigger. The shotgun roared, the blast catching it square in the chest, sending it flying backward. But it didn't stop. It got back up, ribs exposed, organs hanging out, and kept coming. "Headshot," I muttered, and fired again. This time I didn't miss. The top of its skull exploded, and it dropped for good. But the damage was done. I heard more of them now, responding to the gunfire. Lots more. I ran for the back door, burst through it, and sprinted to the truck. "Go, go, go!" I yelled as I threw the backpack in the back and climbed into the driver's seat. Maria was already turning the key. The engine roared to life just as infected poured out of the store behind us. I floored it, the tires squealing as we peeled out of the parking lot. "Did you get what we needed?" Maria asked. "Enough. For now." We drove for another hour, trying to find a way out of the city, but every route was blocked or overrun. The sun was starting to set, painting the smoke-filled sky in shades of orange and red. I knew we needed to find shelter for the night. Being caught in the dark out here would be suicide. I spotted an apartment complex that looked relatively quiet. No fires, no obvious signs of infected. I pulled into the parking garage and found a spot on the third floor away from the entrance. "We'll hole up here for the night," I said. "Find an empty apartment, barricade ourselves in." We took our supplies and found a unit on the fourth floor. The door was locked, but I kicked it in. The apartment was empty, recently abandoned by the look of it. Food still in the fridge, TV still on, showing nothing but static. I locked the door and pushed a heavy couch in front of it. Maria found blankets and made a bed for Marcus on the floor. He was exhausted, fell asleep almost immediately. I sat by the window, shotgun in my lap, watching the street below. Fires burned in the distance. Every few minutes I'd see infected wandering past, alone or in small groups. Once I saw a group of survivors running down the street, chased by a horde. The survivors made it into a building across the way, but the infected surrounded it, pounding on the doors and windows. "We can't stay in Houston," Maria said quietly, sitting down next to me. "Even if we get out of the city, where do we go?" I don't know. Maybe north. Find somewhere rural, small town, away from people. You think anywhere is safe? I looked at her. I think we gotta try. For him. I nodded toward Marcus. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm scared. Me too, baby. Me too. We sat like that for a long time, watching the city die around us. I thought about the refinery, about Big Mike and Rodriguez and all the other guys. I thought about Webb, coughing up blood, attacking me with those dead eyes. I thought about the news from Austin, the terrorists, the virus. How fast everything had fallen apart. Around midnight, I heard voices outside. I moved to the window carefully and looked down. A group of men, maybe 5 or 6, all armed with bats and machetes. They were breaking into cars, looking for supplies. One of them spotted a woman hiding in a vehicle and dragged her out. She screamed and fought, but they laughed and hit her until she stopped moving. Then they left her there and moved on. I felt Maria's hand on my arm. "Don't," she whispered. "There's nothing we can do." She was right, but it killed me to watch. This was what we'd become in less than 24 hours. Animals. The next morning, I woke to the sound of explosions. I ran to the window and saw military helicopters flying over the city, dropping bombs on the densest areas of infection. Buildings collapsed in clouds of dust and fire. The government was trying to contain it, but from where I stood, it looked more like they were just destroying everything. The TV was still showing static, but I found a radio in one of the kitchen drawers and tried different stations. Most were dead, but I found one, a local news station, barely coming through. Coordinated attacks in 17 major cities: Austin, Houston, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York. Authorities confirm the virus was weaponized and deliberately released by a domestic terror organization calling themselves the Red Hand. Symptoms include fever, hemorrhaging, aggression. Infected individuals should be considered extremely dangerous. Do not attempt contact. Military has established quarantine zones. If you are in Houston, proceed to NRG Stadium for evacuation. I repeat, NRG Stadium. The signal cut out. "We should try for the stadium," Maria said. I shook my head. "Too many people. It'll be overrun. Darius, they said evacuation. That means they're getting people out, or they're rounding people up. We don't know what's happening. For all we know, it's a trap. So what do we do?" I thought about it. "We need a better vehicle, something with 4-wheel drive, can handle rough terrain, and we need more fuel. Then we head north, stay off the main roads, avoid the cities. Where are we going to find a vehicle like that?" "I know a place. My buddy Carlos, he's got a repair shop over on Westheimer. He keeps a bunch of trucks there, usually has some ready to sell. If we can get there, we can trade our truck for something better." "Is Carlos?" "I don't know, but we got to try." We packed up our supplies, woke Marcus, and headed back down to the truck. The streets were worse than yesterday. Bodies everywhere, most of them not moving, but some still twitching. The infected seemed to be gathering in larger groups now, hordes of 50 or more, moving through the city like packs of wolves. I took back roads, going slow, trying to stay quiet. Once, we had to stop and wait while a massive horde passed right in front of us, hundreds of them, all shuffling in the same direction like they were being called to something. We finally reached Carlos's shop. The front gate was open, the yard full of trucks and cars in various states of repair. I didn't see anyone moving. "Stay here," I told Maria. "Keep the engine running." I took the shotgun and approached the office. The door was hanging off its hinges. Inside, I found Carlos, or what was left of him. He was slumped in his chair, half his throat torn out, blood dried on his shirt. But his eyes were closed, and he wasn't moving. He hadn't turned. Someone had shot him in the head. Mercy kill, probably. I found the keys to the vehicles hanging on a board in the back room. I grabbed the ones for a Ford F-250, heavy-duty, with a brush guard on the front. Perfect. I ran back out and found the truck. It was in good shape, full tank of gas. I hot-wired it, Carlos had taught me how years ago, and drove it over to where Maria was waiting. "We're switching vehicles," I said. "This one's better. Help me transfer the supplies." We worked fast, moving everything from my truck to the F-250. I grabbed extra gas cans from Carlos's shop and filled them up from his pump. By the time we were done, the sun was high in the sky, and I could hear gunfire in the distance. We climbed into the new truck and headed north. The plan was simple: get out of Houston, find a small town, hole up somewhere safe, and figure out our next move. But nothing ever goes according to plan. We were on Highway 59, about 30 miles north of the city, when we hit our first roadblock. Not abandoned cars this time, military, Humvees and armoured trucks blocking both lanes, soldiers with rifles standing guard. I slowed down as we approached. A soldier stepped forward, hand raised. "Stop the vehicle," he shouted. I stopped. He approached the driver's side window, rifle raised. He looked young, maybe 22, scared out of his mind. "Where are you coming from?" he asked. "Houston. We're trying to get north, away from the infected. Highway's closed." "Nobody in or out of the quarantine zone." "Quarantine zone?" "We're already out." "Orders are orders. Turn around and head back to Houston. There's an evacuation center at NRG Stadium. We're not going back there. It's hell. Please, just let us through." He raised his rifle, pointing it at my face. I said, "Turn around." "I won't ask again." Maria grabbed my arm. "Darius, do what he says." I looked at the soldier, then at the roadblock behind him. At least a dozen more soldiers, all armed. No way through. I put the truck in reverse and backed up slowly. The soldier watched us until we were out of sight. Then I pulled off the highway and onto a side road. "What are you doing?" Maria asked. "Finding another way. We're not going back." I drove east for a few miles, then turned north again on a smaller road. No roadblocks here, just empty farmland, the occasional house, and the ever-present smoke on the horizon. We drove for hours, stopping once to siphon gas from an abandoned car. Marcus slept in the back seat, worn out from the stress. Maria sat next to me, quiet, staring out the window. It was late afternoon when we reached the town of Huntsville. It was small, maybe 20,000 people, with a brick downtown and a state prison on the edge of town. I thought maybe we could find a safe place here, rest for a few days. But as we drove down the main street, I saw that Huntsville had fallen too. Storefronts smashed, cars abandoned, bodies in the streets, and the infected, lots of them, wandering aimlessly. "Keep driving," Maria said. But I'd already seen something that made me stop. A sign, hand-painted, nailed to a telephone pole. "Survivors, Safe Zone, Huntsville Prison, North Entrance." "A safe zone," I said. "Maybe there's people there, safety in numbers. Or it's a trap. We need to check it out. We can't keep running forever." I drove toward the prison, following the signs. The prison was a massive complex, surrounded by high fences and guard towers. As we approached the north entrance, I saw that the gates were open and there were people inside. Dozens of them, maybe more. They'd set up tents and barricades, turned the prison yard into a makeshift camp. A man with a rifle stepped out as we pulled up. He was older, maybe 60, with a grey beard and hard eyes. "You bit?" he asked. "No. None of us." "Get out." Slow, hands where I can see them. We got out carefully. The man looked us over, checking for bites or scratches. "You're clean," he said. "Welcome to Huntsville. I'm Sheriff Dodd. This is what's left of our town." "How many survivors?" I asked. "About 200 last count. We've got food, water, medical supplies. You can stay, but you work. Everyone works. No freeloaders." "That's fair." He nodded. "Follow me. I'll get you settled." Dodd led us into the prison yard. It was organised. I'd give them that. People had jobs. Some were cooking, others were standing guard. A few were tending to the wounded. There were families, kids playing in a corner under the watch of their parents. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. We were assigned a cell in one of the blocks. It was small, bare, but clean. Maria set up our supplies while I went with Dodd to meet the rest of the leadership. There were 5 of them, all locals. Dodd was the sheriff. There was a woman named Janet, who'd been a nurse before all this, a man named Lou, who ran a hardware store, a young guy named Travis, who'd been a deputy, and another man who Dodd introduced as Pike. Pike was different from the others. He was big, muscular, with a shaved head and tattoos running up his arms. He looked like he'd done time, and I wondered if he'd been an inmate here before everything went to hell. "Pike's in charge of security," Dodd said. "He's the one who organised the barricades, the guard rotations. We'd all be dead without him." Pike looked at me with cold eyes. "You know how to fight?" "I can handle myself." "Good. We need everyone who can pull their weight. Infected are getting worse, bigger groups, more aggressive. We've had to fight them off twice this week." "What about the military?" I asked. "We ran into a roadblock south of here." "They said there were evacuation centres." Dodd shook his head. "We tried contacting them. Radio, phone, everything. No response. Far as I can tell, we're on our own." That night, Maria, Marcus and I ate in the prison cafeteria with the other survivors. The food was simple, canned soup, stale bread, but it was the first real meal we'd had in days. People were talking, sharing stories about how they'd survived, where they'd come from. A woman sitting across from us was crying softly. "My husband didn't make it," she said. "He got bit trying to save our neighbour. I had to. I had to shoot him before he turned." Maria reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'm sorry." The woman wiped her eyes. "At least he's not one of those things. At least he's at peace." After dinner, I went up to the guard tower to take my first shift. Travis was there, scanning the perimeter with binoculars. "Quiet tonight," he said. "For now." I looked out over the fields surrounding the prison. I could see fires burning in the distance, and once I thought I saw movement in the tree line, but nothing came close. "How long do you think we can hold out here?" I asked. Travis shrugged. "As long as the food lasts, I guess. Maybe a few weeks, but eventually we'll have to scavenge, and every time we go out there, we lose people." "What about long term? Any plan to get out of Texas?" "Dodd thinks the government will get things under control, send in the army, clear out the infected, rebuild. But I don't know. I've seen what's out there. This thing is spreading too fast." We stood in silence for a while, watching the darkness. Then Travis said, "You got family? Wife? Kids?" "Yeah, my boy Marcus. He's 7, and my wife Maria. Hold on to them." In a world like this, they're all that matters. I thought about Maria and Marcus, safe in our cell, and felt a surge of determination. I'd do whatever it took to keep them alive. The next few days passed in a routine. I worked guard duty, helped reinforce the barricades, went on scavenging runs into town. We found supplies in abandoned houses and stores, brought back as much as we could carry. But every trip was dangerous. The infected were everywhere, and they were learning. They moved in coordinated groups now, setting up ambushes, surrounding us. On one run, we lost a man named Pete. He got separated from the group, and by the time we found him, he was already being torn apart by a dozen infected. We couldn't save him. All we could do was put him down before he turned. Pike was the one who did it. A single bullet to the head. Pete's wife screamed when we brought back his body, but Pike didn't react. Just walked away, stone-faced. That night, I overheard Pike talking to Dodd in the yard. "We can't keep doing this," Pike said. "Every time we go out, we lose someone. Eventually, there won't be anyone left." "What do you suggest?" Dodd asked. "We need to expand, take over more territory, maybe the whole town, clear out the infected, secure the buildings, give ourselves more space, more resources. That would take weeks, and we don't have the manpower. Then we recruit. There's other survivors out there. We find them, bring them in, build an army. Dodd frowned. This isn't a military operation, Pike. We're just trying to survive. And we won't survive if we stay locked up in here like rats in a cage. Pike's voice was hard. Trust me, Sheriff. I know how these things work. You either take control or you get controlled. I didn't like the way Pike talked, but I couldn't argue with his logic. Staying in the prison was safe for now, but it wasn't sustainable. A week later, everything changed. It was early morning when the radio in Dodd's office crackled to life. A voice distorted with static came through, calling all survivors. This is Dr. Raymond Kellerman, formerly of the CDC. I am broadcasting from a secure location in Austin. We have developed a potential cure for the infection. I repeat, a cure. If you can hear this message, please respond. Coordinates are as follows. The voice rattled off a set of GPS coordinates, then the message repeated. Dodd called an emergency meeting. Everyone crowded into the prison chapel to hear the broadcast. A cure, Janet said, her eyes wide. If this is real, we have to check it out, someone shouted. We have to try. But Pike stood up, his voice cutting through the noise. Hold on. How do we know this is legit? Could be a trap. Lure in survivors, take their supplies. Why would anyone do that? Janet asked. Because people are desperate, and desperate people do terrible things. Dodd raised his hand for silence. Pike's right to be cautious, but we can't ignore this. If there's even a chance this is real, we have to investigate. So what's the plan? I asked. We send a small team to Austin. Check out these coordinates, see if this Dr. Kellerman is for real. If the cure exists, we bring it back. If it's a trap, we get out fast. I'll go, I said immediately. Maria grabbed my arm. Darius, no! I have to. If there's a cure, I'm bringing it back for Marcus, for all the kids here. Dodd nodded. We'll need at least 4 people. Darius, you're in. Pike, I want you to lead the team. Pike's eyes narrowed. Fine. But I picked the other 2. He chose Travis and a man named Cole, a former mechanic who knew his way around vehicles. We'd leave at dawn the next day. That night, I held Maria and Marcus close. Promise me you'll come back, Maria said, tears in her eyes. I promise. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. We left before sunrise, taking one of the prison trucks loaded with supplies and weapons. The drive to Austin took 6 hours, longer than it should have because we had to avoid the main highways. The roads were clogged with abandoned cars, and infected were everywhere, drawn to the noise of our engine. We reached the outskirts of Austin by midday. The city was a ruin. Buildings burned, streets littered with bodies, entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. The military had bombed heavily here, trying to contain the outbreak, but it hadn't worked. We followed the GPS coordinates to an industrial park on the east side of the city. One of the buildings had a reinforced door with a keypad. Pike entered the code that had been included in the broadcast, and the door unlocked with a hiss. Inside, the place looked like a bunker. Steel walls, fluorescent lights, generators humming. And at the far end, a man in a white lab coat standing next to a bank of computers. Dr. Kellerman? Dodd had given us his description. The man turned. He was in his 50s, balding, with thick glasses and tired eyes. You came, he said, relief flooding his voice. Thank God. I wasn't sure anyone would. You said you have a cure, Pike said, his voice hard. Not a cure. Not yet, but a treatment, something that can stop the infection from progressing. I've been working on it since the outbreak started. I was part of the team that developed the original virus. God forgive me, but when it was stolen, I knew I had to find a way to stop it. Show us, I said. Kellerman led us to a lab in the back. On a table were rows of vials filled with a clear liquid. This is it, he said. It's an experimental serum based on antibodies I've synthesized from immune survivors. It's not perfect, There are side effects, and it doesn't work on everyone. But in initial tests, it's shown a 70% success rate at halting the infection. 70%, Travis said. That's better than nothing. How many doses do you have? Pike asked. About 50. That's all I've been able to produce with the equipment here. But if you can get me to a proper facility, I can make more. Enough to treat hundreds, maybe thousands. Pike looked at the vials, then at Kellerman. We'll take them. And you're coming with us. Gladly. I have no reason to stay here. We loaded the vials carefully into a reinforced case and started back toward the truck. But as we stepped outside, I heard it. The sound I'd come to dread. Moaning. Lots of it. A horde was coming down the street, at least 200 infected, moving fast. They must have been drawn by the sound of our truck. Run! Pike shouted. We sprinted for the truck, but they were too close. Cole didn't make it. They swarmed him, pulling him down. His screams echoed as we threw ourselves into the truck, and Pike floored it. We smashed through the horde, bodies thudding against the hood and windshield. I fired the shotgun out the window, trying to clear a path. Travis was doing the same on the other side. Kellerman huddled in the back seat, clutching the case of vials. We broke free of the horde and roared out of the city. But we'd lost Cole, and the truck was damaged. Steam was pouring from the hood, and the engine was making a terrible grinding sound. We're not going to make it back to Huntsville in this, Travis said. Pike pulled over on a deserted stretch of highway. We all got out and looked at the engine. It was destroyed, radiator cracked, belts shredded. We need another vehicle, I said. We were in the middle of nowhere, farmland stretching in every direction, but about a mile down the road I saw a cluster of buildings, a small town or what was left of one. Let's check it out, Pike said. We grabbed our weapons and the case of vials and started walking. Kellerman struggled to keep up, not used to the physical exertion. By the time we reached the town, the sun was setting. The place was called Giddings, according to a faded sign. Population 3,000. Now population 0, at least 0 living. We found a gas station with a tow truck parked out back. The keys were still in the ignition. Pike hot-wired it and the engine turned over with a cough. Let's get the hell out of here, he said. But as we were about to leave, I saw something that made me stop. A small grocery store across the street, its windows intact, door still locked. Supplies. We should grab what we can, I said. We don't know when we'll get another chance. Pike hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes, in and out. Travis and I broke into the store while Pike and Kellerman waited with the truck. Inside, the shelves were mostly empty, but we found some canned goods, bottled water, and a few first aid kits. I was stuffing them into a backpack when I heard a sound from the back room. A low growl. I raised the shotgun and moved toward the sound. The back room door was ajar. I pushed it open slowly. Inside was an infected, but it was different from the others I'd seen. It was chained to the wall, its arms and legs bound with heavy chains. And sitting next to it was a man, alive, holding a knife. "Don't shoot," the man said, raising his hands. "I'm not infected." "What the hell is this?" I asked, keeping the shotgun trained on him. "My brother," the man said, nodding toward the infected. "He got bit 3 days ago. I couldn't let him go. I thought maybe, I don't know, maybe he'd get better." "He's not getting better," I said. "You need to let him go." "I can't. He's all I have left." The infected lunged against the chains, snarling, trying to reach the man. The man flinched but didn't move away. "You're going to get yourself killed," I said. "Then so be it." I lowered the shotgun. "Listen, we have something, a treatment. It might save him." The man's eyes widened. "What?" "A doctor we're with. He has a serum. It's not a guarantee, but it's a chance." "Where is he?" "Outside. Come with us." The man looked at his brother, then at me. "Okay." We brought Kellerman into the store. He examined the infected man, checking his vitals, his pupils. "He's far gone," Kellerman said, "but I can try. No promises." He prepared a syringe, filled it with the serum, and injected it into the infected man's arm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the infected man stopped struggling. His eyes, which had been white and bloodshot, began to clear. His breathing slowed. "Is it working?" the brother asked. "Too early to tell," Kellerman said. "We need to monitor him. If the serum works, he should regain consciousness within a few hours. If it doesn't, he'll die," I finished. Kellerman nodded. We couldn't wait. Pike was already shouting from outside, saying we had to leave. I told the brother he could come with us, but he refused. "I'm staying with him," he said. "Whatever happens." I left them there, hoping the serum would work, but knowing I'd probably never find out. We drove through the night, taking turns at the wheel. I thought about the brother and his infected sibling, about Cole getting torn apart, about Maria and Marcus back at the prison. I thought about how fast the world had fallen, how everything I'd known was gone. We reached Huntsville just after dawn. The prison was still standing, the gates still secure. Dodd met us at the entrance. "Where's Cole?" he asked. "Didn't make it," Pike said. Dodd's face fell. "Damn it." "But we got the serum," I said, holding up the case. "And the doctor." Kellerman stepped forward. "I need a lab. Even a makeshift one. If I can synthesize more of the serum, I can treat everyone here." Janet took Kellerman to the medical wing, and the rest of us went to the chapel to debrief. I told them everything, the horde in Austin, the brother and his infected sibling, the serum. People listened with a mix of hope and fear. "So this thing really works?" someone asked. "We saw it with our own eyes," Travis said. "The infected guy stopped attacking. Started to look human again." "But it's not a cure," Pike said. "It just stops the infection from getting worse. And we only have 50 doses. "Kellerman can make more," I said. "If he has the equipment. If he has the time. If we don't get overrun before he finishes." Pike looked around the room. "We need to face facts. This prison is a temporary solution. Eventually the infected will break through, or will run out of food, or something else will go wrong. We need a long-term plan." "What do you suggest?" Dodd asked. Pike stood up. "We expand. Take over the whole town. Clear out the infected, fortify the buildings, create a real safe zone. With the serum we have a chance. We can fight back." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. People were desperate for hope, for a plan that wasn't just waiting to die. But I didn't like the way Pike was talking. There was something in his eyes, a hunger, that made me uneasy. Over the next few days, Kellerman worked around the clock in the makeshift lab Janet had set up. He managed to produce 10 more doses of the serum, but it was slow going. He needed better equipment, more supplies, time. Meanwhile, Pike organized raiding parties to clear out parts of the town. We'd go out in groups of 10, armed with whatever we had, and fight our way through the streets, killing infected, securing buildings. It was brutal work. We lost people. But slowly, we made progress. I was on one of these raids when I met Sarah. We were clearing out a hardware store when I heard someone shouting from the second floor. I ran up the stairs and found a woman barricaded in a storeroom surrounded by infected pounding on the door. "Help me!" she screamed. I fired the shotgun, dropping 2 of the infected. Travis and another guy named Mark helped me finish off the rest. We broke down the door and pulled the woman out. She was in her 30s, dirty and exhausted, but alive. "Thank you," she gasped. "I've been trapped up here for days." "What's your name?" "Sarah." We brought her back to the prison. Janet checked her for bites, gave her food and water. That night, Sarah sat with us in the cafeteria, telling her story. "I was a teacher," she said. "When the outbreak started, I tried to get my students to safety, but—" Her voice broke. "They didn't make it." None of them. Maria reached across the table and held her hand. I'm sorry. Sarah wiped her eyes. I don't know why I'm still alive. Why I survived when so many others didn't. Because you fought, I said. You didn't give up. She looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Strength, determination. She'd been through hell, but she wasn't broken. Sarah joined our group. She was smart, resourceful, good with a gun. Over the next few weeks, she became one of our best fighters. But as we cleared more of the town, I started to notice something. Pike was changing. He was making decisions without consulting Dodd, giving orders like he was in charge, and people were listening to him. One night, I overheard him talking to a group of his followers in the yard. Dodd's weak, Pike was saying. He's too soft. We need someone who's willing to make the hard choices. What are you suggesting? One of them asked. I'm suggesting we need new leadership. I stepped out of the shadows. You planning a coup, Pike? Pike turned to face me, his expression cold. Just stating facts, Darius. Dodd's a good man, but good men don't survive in this world. You need to be ruthless. You need to be willing to do whatever it takes. And you think that's you? I know it is. I walked away, but I knew this wasn't over. Pike was dangerous, and if I wasn't careful, he'd take control of the whole camp. The next morning, I told Dodd what I'd heard. I know, he said, surprising me. I've known for a while. Pike's building support, positioning himself to take over. So what are you going to do about it? Dodd sighed. I don't know. He's right about one thing. We need strong leadership, and I'm not sure I'm that anymore. Don't say that. People trust you. They need you. Do they? Or do they just need someone to tell them what to do? Dodd looked old, tired. Maybe Pike's right. Maybe I am too soft for this world. Before I could respond, Janet burst into the room. We've got a problem, she said. One of the survivors just turned. He was fine yesterday, no bite marks, no symptoms. But this morning he attacked his bunkmate. We had to lock him up. How is that possible? Dodd asked. If he wasn't bitten... The virus is airborne now, Kellerman said, appearing behind Janet. I've been monitoring it. It's evolving. The infected are releasing spores when they die, spreading the virus through the air. Anyone who breathes it in is at risk. Jesus, I muttered. So we're all infected? Not necessarily. Some people have natural immunity, but others... Kellerman paused. Others could turn at any time. Panic spread through the camp. People started accusing each other, demanding tests, quarantining themselves. Dodd tried to maintain order, but it was falling apart, and Pike saw his opportunity. That night, he called a meeting in the yard. Hundreds of people gathered, desperate for answers. We can't trust anyone, Pike said, his voice booming. The virus is in the air. Any one of us could turn. We need to implement strict protocols, daily temperature checks, blood tests, quarantine for anyone showing symptoms. Who's going to enforce that? Someone shouted. I will, Pike said. Me and anyone loyal to the survival of this camp. Sheriff Dodd has done his best, but this situation requires a different kind of leadership. Military leadership. You're not military, I said, stepping forward. No, but I spent 10 years in this prison for armed robbery and assault. I know how to survive. I know how to lead. And I know how to make the hard choices that Dodd can't. People were murmuring, some in agreement, others uncertain. Dodd stood up. Pike, I understand your concerns, but turning this camp into a dictatorship isn't the answer. Then what is? Pike challenged. Prayer? Hope? We need action, Dodd, and if you can't provide it, then step aside and let someone who can. The crowd erupted in shouts. Some supported Pike, others supported Dodd. I saw the camp splitting right down the middle, and then the alarms went off. The infected were attacking. A massive horde, bigger than any we'd seen, was swarming the prison gates. "Everyone to the barricades!" Dodd shouted. We ran to the walls, grabbed our weapons and opened fire. But there were too many of them. Hundreds, maybe thousands, all moving as one, climbing over each other to reach the top of the fence. "They're breaking through!" Travis yelled. I saw the fence start to buckle under the weight. We had minutes, maybe less. "Fall back," Pike ordered. "Get everyone inside the main building." We retreated, firing as we went. The infected poured through the broken fence, flooding the yard. I saw people getting pulled down, torn apart. Sarah was next to me, shooting methodically, every shot a kill. Maria and Marcus were already inside, thank God. We barricaded the doors, piled furniture against them, but I could hear the infected pounding, trying to break through. "We're trapped," Janet said. Pike looked around, calculating. "The roof." We go to the roof, signal for help. "Signal who?" I asked. "There's no one left." Then we wait them out. Eventually they'll move on, but I knew they wouldn't. The infected didn't give up. They'd wait out there forever if they had to. We made it to the roof. From up there I could see the full horror of the horde. The yard was packed with them, shoulder to shoulder, all looking up at us, moaning, reaching. "We're not getting out of this," someone said. Pike turned to Kellerman. "How many doses of the serum do you have left?" 60, give or take. Not enough for everyone here. The implication hung in the air. We'd have to choose who got the serum and who didn't. "We draw lots," Dodd said. "Fairest way." "No," Pike said. "We give it to the strongest, the ones who can fight, who can protect the group. The weak, the old, the children, they're just dead weight." Maria clutched Marcus to her chest. "You bastard." Pike shrugged. "I'm a realist. In this world, only the strong survive." I stepped toward him. "You're not deciding who lives and who dies. Then who is?" "You?" Pike pulled a gun from his belt, pointed it at me. "I'm in charge now. Anyone who has a problem with that can join the infected outside." Several of Pike's followers drew their weapons, backing him up. "This is insane," Dodd said. "No, Sheriff. This is survival." Pike looked at Kellerman. "Start distributing the serum. My people first." Kellerman hesitated, then looked at me. I could see the fear in his eyes. He didn't want to do it, but he didn't have a choice. But before anyone could move, the door to the roof burst open. Infected had broken through the barricade. They poured onto the roof, dozens of them. Chaos, gunfire, screaming. I grabbed Maria and Marcus and shoved them toward the edge of the roof. "There's a fire escape on the east side," I shouted. "Go!" We ran, with Sarah and a few others following. Behind us I heard Pike shouting orders, trying to organize a defense. But it was too late. The infected were overwhelming them. We reached the fire escape and started climbing down. I looked back and saw Kellerman, still on the roof, the case of serum in his hands. An infected grabbed him from behind, pulled him down. The case fell, shattered on the ground below, vials breaking, the serum spilling out uselessly. "No!" I shouted. But there was nothing I could do. We kept climbing. Halfway down, the ladder gave way, rusted through. We fell the last 10 feet, hitting the ground hard. My ankle twisted, pain shooting up my leg. "Get up!" Sarah pulled me to my feet. We ran toward the parking lot. I could hear the horde behind us, getting closer. We reached the tow truck, miraculously still there, and piled in. I turned the key, and the engine roared to life. "Go! Go! Go!" Maria screamed. I floored it, smashing through a group of infected, their bodies bouncing off the hood. We crashed through the prison gates and onto the open road. I didn't stop driving until we were miles away. When I finally pulled over, my hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the wheel. "Is everyone okay?" I asked. Maria and Marcus were in the back seat, holding each other. Sarah was next to me, blood on her shirt but not her own. "We made it," she said. "Barely, but we made it." I thought about Dodd, Kellerman, Travis, all the people we'd left behind. Dead, all of them. "Where do we go now?" Maria asked. I didn't have an answer. The prison was gone. The serum was gone. The cure was gone. All we had was each other and a half-tank of gas. I thought about heading west, toward New Mexico, maybe Arizona, somewhere the infection hadn't spread yet, but deep down I knew there was nowhere safe. The virus was everywhere now, evolving, spreading, unstoppable. For the next few days, we drove aimlessly, scavenging what we could from abandoned towns. Food was scarce, gas was scarce, hope was scarce. We were somewhere in West Texas, near the New Mexico border, when we saw the smoke. A town was burning, not from the infected. This was deliberate. Buildings set on fire, cars overturned, bodies hanging from lampposts. "What happened here?" Sarah asked. We drove closer, cautiously. And that's when we saw them, a gang of men, maybe 20 strong, all armed, all wearing the same red bandanas around their necks. "Raiders," I said. We tried to back up, but they'd already seen us. They surrounded the truck, guns drawn. "Get out," one of them ordered. We had no choice. We climbed out, hands raised. The leader of the gang stepped forward. He was tall, lean, with a scar running down his face. "Well, well," he said. "Look what we got here. Survivors. You got food, water, gas?" "Just enough for ourselves," I said. He laughed. "That's cute." "You think you got a choice?" He nodded to his men. "Check the truck." They tore through our supplies, taking everything, our food, our water, our medical kit. I watched helplessly as they stripped us clean. "What about them?" one of the raiders asked, nodding toward Maria and Sarah. The leader looked them over, a hungry gleam in his eyes. "Bring 'em! They'll fetch a good price." "Price?" Maria asked. "What are you talking about?" "There's people out west, rich people, holed up in their mansions with private security. They're paying good money for servants, labourers, whatever. You two look healthy enough." "You're selling people?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Supply and demand, friend. The world's ended, but capitalism's still alive and well." He turned to his men. "Tie 'em up. We'll take 'em back to camp." They grabbed Maria and Sarah, started dragging them toward a truck. Marcus was crying, reaching for his mother. Something inside me snapped. I lunged at the nearest raider, grabbed his gun and fired. The bullet caught him in the chest and he dropped. I swung the gun around and fired again, hitting another one. Then all hell broke loose. The raiders opened fire. I dove behind our truck, shooting back. Sarah had managed to grab a knife and was fighting off one of the raiders. Maria was on the ground, covering Marcus with her body. I shot 3 more raiders before the gun clicked empty. I grabbed a piece of rebar from the ground and charged the leader. He swung at me with a machete, but I dodged and drove the rebar into his stomach. He gasped, blood pouring from his mouth, and collapsed. The rest of the raiders scattered, running for their lives. I stood there, covered in blood, breathing hard. Sarah was helping Maria and Marcus to their feet. "You okay?" I asked. "We're okay," Maria said, though her voice was shaking. We gathered what little supplies the raiders had left and got back in the truck. I didn't look back at the bodies. I just drove. We kept heading west, but the closer we got to the border, the worse things became. The military had set up massive quarantine walls, trying to keep the infection contained. But it was too late. The virus had already spread beyond Texas, into New Mexico, Colorado, California. Nowhere was safe. We found an abandoned farm and holed up there for a few days. There was a well for water, some chickens that hadn't been killed yet, a vegetable garden that was still producing. It wasn't much, but it was something. I thought maybe we could stay there, build a life, wait out the storm. But I knew it wouldn't last. On the 3rd night, I was sitting on the porch, keeping watch, when I heard the radio crackle. I'd been scanning frequencies, looking for any sign of life, of hope. Evacuation orders for all remaining survivors in the Houston area, nuclear strike authorized by presidential order, impact zone includes Houston, Baytown, Galveston, estimated detonation time. 0400 hours. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. My blood ran cold. Houston, my city, where I'd grown up, where I'd worked, where I'd lived my whole life. They were going to nuke it. I thought about all the people still there, hiding in buildings, fighting to survive, all about to be vaporized. I thought about the refinery, where Big Mike and Rodriguez and all the others had died. About the prison, where Dodd and Travis and so many more had made their last stand. All of it, gone. Darius? Maria appeared in the doorway. What's wrong? I told her. She sat down next to me, and we watched the eastern horizon in silence. At exactly 4 a.m, the sky lit up. A brilliant flash, brighter than the sun, so intense I had to look away. Then, seconds later, the sound. A rolling boom that shook the ground, rattled the windows, echoed across the plains. When I looked back, there was a mushroom cloud rising into the sky, huge and terrible, miles and miles away, but still visible. Houston was gone. Marcus came out, rubbing his eyes. "Daddy, what was that?" I pulled him close. "Just fireworks, buddy." Go back to sleep. But he knew. We all knew. The government had given up. They'd decided that the only way to stop the infection was to burn it all down. And Houston was just the first. Over the next few weeks, we heard reports of other cities being destroyed. Dallas, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. The world was ending, not with a whimper, but with fire and death. We stayed at the farm, growing our own food, rationing our supplies. Sarah taught Marcus how to shoot. Maria and I took turns keeping watch. Every day was a struggle, but we survived. And then, one morning, I woke up feeling wrong, feverish, weak. I checked myself for bites, for scratches. Nothing. The airborne virus. I'd been exposed weeks ago, maybe longer, and now it was catching up with me. I didn't tell Maria at first, didn't want to scare her, but she noticed. "You're sick," she said. "I'm fine." "Don't lie to me, Darius." I looked at her, and the truth spilled out. "It's the virus. I'm infected." Her face went white. No, there has to be something we can do. There's nothing. The serum's gone. Kellerman's dead. There's no cure. How long? I don't know. Days, maybe. A week if I'm lucky. She started crying and I held her. I thought about everything we'd been through, everything we'd lost. And I thought about Marcus and what would happen to him when I was gone. "You have to promise me something," I said. "When I turn, you put me down. Don't hesitate. Don't wait. Just do it." "Darius?" "Promise me. I promise." Over the next few days, I got worse. The fever spiked. I started coughing blood. I could feel the virus working its way through my system, shutting down my body piece by piece. On the 4th day, I woke up and couldn't remember Maria's name. I looked at her and saw a stranger. That's when I knew it was time. I went outside, walked to the edge of the property. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and orange. It was beautiful. I heard footsteps behind me. Maria, holding the shotgun. "I'm sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Don't be." "You're doing what needs to be done." I turned to face her. "Tell Marcus I love him. Tell him I fought as hard as I could. I will." I closed my eyes and waited for the shot, but it didn't come. I opened my eyes and saw Maria lowering the gun. "I can't," she said. "I can't do it. You have to—" "No, I'm not killing you. If you're going to turn, then we'll deal with it when it happens. But I'm not murdering my husband." I wanted to argue, but I was too weak. I collapsed and she caught me, helped me back to the house. That night, I drifted in and out of consciousness. I heard voices, saw shapes moving in the darkness. I thought I was dying. But when I woke up the next morning, I felt different. The fever was gone. The pain was gone. I sat up, expecting to feel the hunger, the rage, the mindless need to feed that drove the infected. But I didn't. I felt normal. Weak, exhausted, but normal. Maria was sitting next to me, holding my hand. "You're still you," she said, wonder in her voice. "I don't understand." "You fought it off. Somehow you fought off the virus." I looked at my hands, flexed my fingers. I was alive, human, immune. "Maybe Kellerman was right," I said. "Maybe some people have natural immunity." Over the next few weeks, I regained my strength, and we realized something. If I was immune, maybe others were too. Maybe there was hope after all. We started reaching out on the radio, looking for other survivors. And we found them, scattered, scared, but alive. We told them about the farm, about the possibility of immunity, about fighting back. Slowly, people started coming. A few at first, then more. We built a community, a real one, based on cooperation and trust, not fear and violence. But the world outside was still dying. The infected were everywhere, and the government was still dropping bombs, burning cities, trying to contain the spread. And then, one day, we got a message. A scientist in Canada claiming to have developed a vaccine based on the antibodies of immune survivors. She needed samples, volunteers, people willing to make the journey north. I looked at Maria and Sarah and the others we'd gathered. "We have to try." "It's 1,000 miles, Sarah said. "Through infected territory, military checkpoints, God knows what else." "I know. But if there's a chance—" "Then we take it," Maria finished. We loaded up the truck with everything we had and started north. It was the longest, hardest journey of my life. We fought infected, raiders, starvation, cold. We lost people. Good people. But we kept going. And when we finally reached the lab in Canada, when I gave my blood, when the scientist confirmed that I was immune and that my antibodies could be used to create a vaccine, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. But hope wasn't enough. The world was too far gone. The vaccine worked, but it took months to produce, and by then the infected outnumbered the living 10 to 1. Governments collapsed, cities burned, the military gave up, and one by one the safe zones fell. The lab in Canada was overrun 6 months after we arrived. We barely escaped, fleeing into the frozen wilderness with a handful of vaccine doses. We tried to head south, back to the States, but the border was gone, dissolved into chaos. We wandered for weeks, living off the land, fighting infected, watching the world die. Marcus grew up fast in that time. He learned to shoot, to fight, to survive. He stopped being a child and became something harder, something necessary. And I watched Maria age a decade in a year. The stress, the fear, the loss, it broke something in her. She was still there, still fighting, but the light in her eyes had dimmed. We ended up back in Texas, drawn by some irrational need to see home one last time. But there was nothing left. Houston was a crater, Baytown a ruin, the refinery a twisted mass of melted metal. We found a house on the outskirts of what used to be Huntsville. It was intact, miraculously untouched by the chaos. We barricaded ourselves inside and waited. For what, I didn't know anymore. The infected were everywhere now, mutated by the virus, faster, stronger, more coordinated. They hunted in massive packs, thousands strong, sweeping across the landscape like a plague of locusts. We heard reports of other survivors holding out in remote locations, mountains, islands, deserts. But we had no way to reach them. No gas, no vehicles, no hope. One night, I heard the sound we'd all been dreading. The low moan of a horde coming closer. I looked out the window and saw them. Tens of thousands, maybe more, filling the streets, the fields, everything. A sea of dead flesh all moving toward us. "They found us," Sarah said. I looked at Maria and Marcus. We can't fight this many. We have to run. Run where? Maria asked. There's nowhere left. She was right. We were surrounded, trapped, with nowhere to go. I thought about the vaccine in my pocket. 3 doses. Enough to save 3 people, maybe. But what was the point? Even if we survived, even if we found others, even if we rebuilt, the world was dead. The infected had won. I love you, I told Maria. I love you too. We held each other as the horde closed in. The doors splintered, the windows shattered. They poured into the house, hundreds of them, clawing, biting, tearing. I fought, we all fought, but it was useless. The last thing I saw was Marcus trying to protect his mother, so brave, so strong. And then the darkness took me. But I didn't die. I woke up hours later, lying in a pile of bodies. The horde had moved on, chasing some other prey. I was covered in bites, in blood, but I was still alive. The immunity. It had saved me again. I stumbled through the ruined house, looking for Maria and Marcus. I found them in the bedroom, their bodies torn apart, unrecognizable. I fell to my knees and screamed. I don't know how long I stayed there. Hours, maybe days. Time stopped meaning anything. Eventually, I walked out of the house and into the wasteland. I had no destination, no purpose. I just walked. I saw other survivors sometimes, hiding in buildings, scavenging for food. But I didn't approach them. What was the point? I saw the infected too, everywhere, ruling the ruins of civilization. They didn't attack me anymore. Maybe they could sense I was immune. Maybe they just didn't care. I walked for weeks, maybe months. The landscape changed, but it was all the same. Death and decay and the slow crumbling of everything humanity had built. And then, one day, I saw it on the horizon. Another mushroom cloud rising into the sky. Another city destroyed, trying to stop the spread. But it wouldn't work. Nothing would work. The world was ending, and I was watching it die. I thought about Maria, about Marcus, about all the people I'd known and lost. I thought about Big Mike and Rodriguez at the refinery, about Dodd and Travis at the prison, about Sarah, who'd fought so hard and died so young, all of them gone. I kept walking, survivor's guilt eating me alive, until I reached the coast. The Gulf of Mexico, its waters dark and polluted, littered with debris. I stood on the beach and watched the sun set one last time, and I realized the cruel joke of it all. I was immune. I would survive. I would watch everyone I'd ever loved die, watch the world burn, and I would still be here, living in a world of the dead. I heard movement behind me, turned and saw a lone infected stumbling out of the ruins. It looked at me with those dead eyes, and for a moment I wanted it to attack, to end it. But it just walked past me, into the water, disappearing beneath the waves. I sat down on the sand and waited for whatever came next. Days passed. I scavenged what I could, staying alive out of habit more than desire. And then one morning I heard it. A helicopter flying low over the coastline. I ran toward it, waving my arms, shouting. It circled once, then landed on the beach. A man in a hazmat suit climbed out. "You immune?" he asked. I nodded. "Come with me. We're gathering immune survivors, taking them to a secure location, building something new." I hesitated. "Where?" "Alaska. The virus can't survive in the cold. We've got 1,000 people up there, maybe more. Scientists, soldiers, farmers. We're rebuilding." I looked back at the ruins of Texas, at the wasteland that had been my home. "There's nothing left for you here," the man said. "But up north, there's hope." Hope. That word again. I climbed into the helicopter and we lifted off. As we flew north, I looked down at the devastation below. The cities destroyed, the land scorched, the infected roaming in hordes. The world had ended. But maybe, just maybe, something new could begin. I thought about Maria and Marcus, about the future they'd never see. And I made a promise to them, to myself, to everyone I'd lost. I would survive. I would help rebuild. I would make sure their deaths meant something, even if it killed me. The helicopter flew on, leaving the dead world behind, carrying me toward an uncertain future. And for the first time in months, I felt something other than despair. I felt purpose. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning.